Generally, when I talk about expenses in a food truck, there's always two big expenses that come to mind. One being food cost, the other being labor. Those two added together are always going to be your top two expenses. If they're not your top two expenses, then you're probably not paying yourself. So today we're going to talk about labor and how you can control it and make sure that you are still making money. Welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am a food truck business coach, author of 5 food truck vending books, including Food Truck 101 and Food Truck 201. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. Table Needs welcomes you to listen in as Christian and Tracy, co-owners of Restless Coffee, spill the beans on their debut year in the food truck scene. Uncover the secrets behind their secret menu, how they continually provide stellar customer service, and why building a strong community following is so important. Click the link in the episode description to watch the video for free. So when it comes to labor, first things I want you to understand is how much you should be paying your employees. And I talk about this many times. It's real simple. Whatever the local economy pays for an employee that works in a kind of a casual sit-down restaurant. So we're talking Ruby Tuesdays and things like that. Whatever they pay a line cook, that's what you're going to pay your staff. And you're not going to pay any kind of a shift differential or a position differential because you want all your employees to, number one, know how to do everything. And then number two, you want them to be able to help each other. You don't want someone that gets paid less to go, well, that's not my job, so I'm not going to help. You're going to make sure you understand the power of wages. Make sure everyone is starting at the same rate. And as they learn more positions, you pay them more. They have to have a clear-cut path for making more money. Now let's talk about a living wage. I hear that all the time whenever people give recommendations for how much should a food employee make, or a food truck employee make, or a restaurant employee make. So let's talk about some serious things when it comes to a living wage. First of all, a living wage is one of those things that someone that's involved in politics likes to kick about and make it sound like they're for the little guy. But a living wage is more complicated than you would realize. A living wage, and there's actually a website that calculates what a living wage should be based on each different economy. So I picked, since I'm from Kentucky, I picked Kentucky as a random state. And then I looked through Kentucky's most poor area. And the county is Owsley County, Kentucky. And then what a living wage is in that particular county. If you're single, living wage is $14.63. But I bet you didn't know that if you have children, the living wage goes up. Because again, the theory behind a living wage is you have one job and it pays for everything you need. So if you got children or a spouse, the living wage has to do what? Go up. Now, you as a food truck owner, you don't care how many kids somebody has. And as a business owner, each job that you have on your food truck, your restaurant, your tent, your cart, they all cost a certain amount of money to you. And no matter what the person's personal lifestyle is like, doesn't matter. You can't cover everybody. So that living wage, if you're an adult with no kids, $14.63. But as soon as you add on one child, it goes to $30.68. Second child, $39.57. Do you know any food truck that could sustain paying its employees $39.57 an hour? I don't know any either. So let's go to an expensive state. Let's try California. Let's try Orange County, California. If you're single, by yourself, no kids, living wage to be able to survive in Orange County, California is $23.66. That's pushing the border of what a typical food truck could afford. But if you have a single child, so it's you and your kid, you need to make $47.25 just to be able to pay for the basics in Orange County. So living wage is going to vary around the country. And it also is going to vary from the job that you're doing. Food service was never intended to be the only job you ever get and you retire from it. Food service was always intended to be an entry-level position to teach valuable skills to people so that they increase their own skill level and become more valuable to their next employer. So don't think that you can hire somebody and it's going to pay all of their bills, because it can't. That's why I focus, whenever I go to hire people, I want teenagers. I want people that have never had a job so I don't have bad habits I got to undo. I want somebody that's not dependent upon me supporting them and their 18 kids that they got at home. You can't support everyone, so don't think that you can, and don't fall into that living wage trap because you're a food truck. You got to make money, otherwise you ain't making a living wage. So what should you be looking at for a total pay? And we're not talking about an hourly employee. What we're talking about is your total wages on your truck, your labor expense on your truck. Food costs and labor costs added together need to be 60% or less. So if you have a 20% food cost, you could have a 40% labor. If you have 30% food costs, then you can have a 30% labor. So you see how those two go together. You need to be under 60%, and 60% is the absolute top. I would prefer you to be at 50%, 25 in food, 25 in labor. It's hard to hit a 25 labor because food trucks don't send people home. The owner's working, so the owner's got to make some money, and then they'll have an employee to work with them because they need 2 people on the truck. And what ends up happening is when they start to feel like they're being pushed, they add on a third person. But they don't send that third person home when it gets slow. They have now decided that it takes 3 people to run the food truck because you never know when we're going to be busy. So now you got 3 people that need to be making money, and they're cutting that portion of the pie even smaller, where each one of them is making a little bit less if you're hitting your labor percent. But in most cases, food trucks don't hit a labor percent goal. They just pay them and then realize, oh crap, I'm not making any money. So guess who doesn't get paid? That would be the owner. What you got to do is think about how many customers per hour, how many guests per hour can one single person handle? Because there is an amount that you could handle without any additional help. Would you be super fast? Most of the time, yeah, you would be. You would be just as fast as if you had that second employee, because we're talking about low volume here. If you have a cook time of 8 minutes, then obviously you could handle one order every 8 minutes. If you get 2 people that walk up at the same time, no big deal. Take both the orders, start the food. It's still going to take 8 minutes to cook both portions of food. If you get a third order, awesome, because the food cooks whether you're standing there watching it or not. Go take an order. Just have in the back of your mind, I got to turn something over. I got to flip something. I got to do something. And then that little mental timer goes off and you excuse yourself and say, hey, I'll be right back. You keep thinking about what you want. Let me go turn this food. And you go turn the food. It can be done. Think about every hot dog cart owner in the world. They work pretty much by themselves, and they're able to do it without a problem. Get you a food truck, get you a food trailer. You're going to start with just you by yourself. Now, when you find that point where you're getting pushed and you're having to cook as frequently as you're having to take orders, that's your signal that we need a second person. But don't have the second person come in the same time you do, because now you've just lightened your prep load, but you're paying out more money. Only bring on that second person when you need them. If you open at 10 o'clock and you don't get busy until 11, they don't come in till 11. And you've always got in the back of your mind that you can make that first hour by yourself. It can be done. There have been many, many times in my career where I've gone in to open up a restaurant. And we're not talking about a little food trailer. We're talking about a full-fledged sit-down, has a drive-through restaurant. And somebody hasn't shown up. But you know what? I opened on time. And if I had to, I worked the front and the back by myself until someone else came in to work. That's what you do, and it can be done. Once you find yourself being pushed constantly to where you need that second person, what time does it make sense for them to come in to where they can be the most benefit to your business? And then on the flip side of that, after you get out of your rush period, however long that rush period is, if those employees aren't going to stay and help you clean up, they need to go home. They don't need to be on the clock. Sad thing is owners get locked into, well, I need help doing prep, and I need help doing service, I need help during cleanup, and it takes 3 people to do those jobs. So they have 3 people working on the truck from open to close, from prep until cleanup, without thinking about the productivity during the service hours. You really need 3 people there the entire time? Probably not. And if you don't need 3 people there all the time, you got 2 choices. Either send somebody home early, or you reduce your hours that you're open so that you come out of a busy rush and you're closing. And then the person that's there, instead of sending them home, they just help you clean up. But if you got time for employees to stand around, then you're wasting money. And that money is coming out of your personal pocket because, again, you got to pay them. They got to be paid. So you're the one that doesn't get paid. You got to understand that your labor includes more than just that $15 an hour or that $26 an hour like we were talking about on the living wage in those different counties. Because what also is included is going to be any benefits that you offer, like those free meals that you do, taxes, like the FICA tax that you have to match. And then there's other taxes too that are based on the number of hours working, like unemployment taxes or workers' comp. All of those things count as labor. So it's not just $15 an hour. It's $15 an hour plus the impact of the taxes on your business. All of that goes into labor, your total labor dollar. And again, it's got to be less than 60% at the very most when you include labor and food costs together. You got to have a control on that. Send people home when it's slow. Keep records of when you're busy and when you're slow. That's why a POS system becomes super important, because it'll tell you what the peaks and valleys are throughout the day. Don't be afraid to schedule in the 15 minutes. We used to run all of our schedules on 15 minutes. So from 11 to 11:15, we didn't need 3 people. We didn't have 3 people. We had 2. But 11:15, on average, we start getting busy. Then we add that third person. That's what you have to do. Keep records and then schedule based on those records. If you do not schedule your employees, you are losing money. They cannot come in when you come in, and they can't leave when you leave. Going to be losing money. Now, you got to understand your minimum wage laws. There are some food trucks that will pay by the day, and that's okay, but they still have to punch in and out. Bet you didn't know that. A lot of workers' comp states require all employees, including management, to punch in and out so that they can prove that that employee was technically on the clock when they got hurt. So if you're not punched in and you cut yourself and, I got to go get stitches, workers' comp's going to want to make sure you were punched in, that you were officially working and not at home and trying to get the job to pay for your injury. Everyone punches in. You keep track of those records. And you have a POS system that tells you the sales per man hour, which would be taking the total number of people on the clock and dividing it by the total sales for that hour. Way back in the day, our goal in the 70s and 80s was 25 sales a man hour. Now it needs to be about $60 to $65 per man hour. So what that says, if you're only doing $65 an hour, you should be able to handle it by yourself. You don't need a second person until you're above $65 an hour. Now think about it. If you're doing $70 an hour and that's pushing you, when you add on that second person, it drops down the productivity. Now it's $35 a person. So the productivity lowers. You got to think about, when do you really need that extra person? Is it $70? Is it $80? Is it $90? And then when you bring that person on, again, the productivity lowers because you got 2 people for $90 in sales, 45 sales per man hour, lower productivity. So here's a couple of suggestions so you can control your labor cost. We talked about scheduling. Make sure you only bring people in when you actually need them. That has to be based on real numbers. That's why a POS system becomes super important. You have to cross-train. I started out telling everybody that clear path to making raises is everyone on the food truck knows how to do everything. Cross-training helps because people can step in and help each other. The more they're cross-trained and the more proficient they are at all the different positions on your food truck, the faster they work together as a team. And guess what happens? The fewer people you need to handle the sales. You got to always be training your people. That means you're investing time, and that means you're investing your personal time. So you're investing time, you're investing money to help them to become productive. You have to coach them through the meal period. You got to give them little mini reviews at the end of the day. Hey, you did awesome on the grill. It was awesome. You did a great job. Keep it up. Or, hey, you need to get the burgers down quicker. You need to shake the fries more frequently so they're not sticking together. You need to give them tips on getting better, and then congratulate them when they do a good job. You want to leverage technology. We have timers on our food truck. It's just me and Melissa. And we've been doing this so long, mentally, we automatically time everything anyway. But we still set timers. And I have timers set as low as 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now, you would think at 1 minute and 20 seconds, you would just remember. When you set that timer, I can step away and focus on other things and expend my energy on taking care of the guest that's in front of me than trying to worry about, okay, we're at 1 minute, now we're at 50 seconds, now we're at 40 seconds. Because now my brain is not where it needs to be. Timer goes off, go over and touch the timer and pull out whatever food product it is that's cooking. Use timers, use technology, use it to your benefit. Not only do we have a timer, we also have a clock. We have 2 clocks actually on the trailer. We have the microwave that's set. We keep it set so the clock runs at the appropriate time. And then we have an analog clock that's run by batteries. We're always aware of the time. And it has a sweep hand on it, a second sweep hand, so we can pay attention. Our POS system tells us how long it takes us from the point that an order has been put on the KDS until it's cleared off. We know how fast or how slow we're going. You have to look at those numbers constantly. So the point of this little 2-episode arc, we talked about food costs yesterday, we're talking about labor costs today. You have to implement the strategies to keep yourself making money. Can't ignore one and focus on the other. You got to always be thinking about food cost. That's part of training. We talked about training and making your staff more productive. You're also teaching them how to not waste, teaching them how to be a little bit faster and still produce a picture-perfect sandwich or a picture-perfect plate, but still make it out as fast as they possibly can. When you get one sandwich, how quick can you do it? When you get 3 sandwiches, how quick can you do them and still have them come out looking picture perfect and being as hot as they're supposed to be or as cold as they're supposed to be? Constantly practicing your entire day is productivity practice. How many sandwiches can you put out an hour? How many guests can you wait on per hour? And then work to improve that. What can we do to make ourselves more efficient? Because when you make your team, help your team to become more efficient, you don't need as many labor hours. And then you can reward the really hard workers by giving them the most hours and just filling in with the other employees that aren't quite as good. The key point here, you got to track everything. Track your food costs. We talked about that. Track your labor. How many labor hours are you really using, and how does that compare to your sales per man hour? Just work on improving the sales per man hour. Thank you so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information helpful to your food truck business, please become a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We have a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new beginners to decades-old veterans. They've all got your back when it comes to helping you with your food truck. And again, thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow, because I got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and your food truck business grow.